In the world today, there's 100 million refugees. There coincidentally happens to be 100 million jobs in the digital sector that have no people ready or skilled to be employed in them. It's a wonderful coincidence. Let me introduce you today, folks, to 𝘀𝗲𝗃 and Monique. Both are working in the sector where they're attempting to help refugees gain digital skills to rebuild lives that probably haven't turned out quite as they might have expected. So, jumping straight in, 𝘀𝗃𝗃, would you mind introducing yourself to the audience and telling us a little bit more about you, sir?
Hi, I am the founder and CEO of Robo Co-op. This is an online community for digital inclusion of people with refugee background. And it's a co-op, so we do everything together. So we learn digital skill together, but not only that, we work together to deliver digital skill to the society. And also we run this co-op together so that we can be bigger tent for people with similar background, like refugee background. Yes, so that's what we do.
Good to meet you. Monique, would you mind introducing yourselves, and then we'll jump in and I'll ask you both some questions.
Thank you very much. So my name is Monique Sokan, and I work for the UN Refugee Agency, which is mandated basically to provide international protection for refugees throughout the world.
Let me jump in and ask some questions. Monique, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. 100 million sounds like a big number, which can be really overwhelming for people. How do you begin each day making a dent in that number of refugees worldwide?
Yeah, no, it's a huge number. And actually, UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, was created after World War II. And, since World War II, we haven't seen such huge number of forcibly displaced persons around the world. Even 10 years ago, we didn't even have half of it. So the numbers have really increased dramatically. And this is because of the many crises that we're seeing, around the world right now. I mean, the latest in Europe is the Ukraine crisis, Sudan crisis recently. I'm working in the Asia-Pacific region, and we are also dealing with two major crises in this region, which is the Afghan situation and the Myanmarese situation. As you know, both countries, have underwent conflict for several years already. This has generated many displacements in neighboring countries. For instance, Afghanistan, we have refugees going to Pakistan, to Iran. For the Myanmar situation, for instance, we are also seeing quite a number of refugees going to neighboring countries. So it is a very complex situation with crises that don't seem to be reducing. In the contrary, what we are seeing also is that solidarity for refugees seems to have also decreased, unfortunately, probably because of the sheer number of people being displaced right now. As you mentioned, over 100 million forcibly displaced individuals, which is overwhelming for countries which are providing support to them. So for our organization, of course, we rely also on states, on many different stakeholders, civil society, private sector, different stakeholders to basically join up and try to alleviate the suffering of those who have been forced to flee their homes because of war, because of persecution in particular. And obviously the first needs that those individuals have is really, their own personal safety first. So we are trying to save lives every day. and provide the basic rights and needs for those individuals who have lost everything. They've lost their homes, they've lost their families, they've lost their country. So yeah, the first thing that we do is really to save lives, to provide urgent assistance in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of health, but also, of course, education. And what we are seeing right now also is that with the multiplicity of emergency situations and the fact that crises, as I mentioned earlier, continue, we have refugees in what we say a protracted situation, meaning that they live or they stay in asylum in other countries for many years. And during this time in asylum, obviously they need also to have a dignified life, which means that having basic access to education, basic access also to employment or to livelihoods is very important for them to continue to secure a dignified life. So this is where education is also key for us, and this is where basic literacy is key. But as we are also in a connected world, digital literacy is becoming even more important. Especially for the younger generation, I would say, who are very connected. So for us, we do encourage activities, programs, projects that enhance skills of refugees. I think knowing how to use computers, knowing how to use social media, mobile phone, is very key now. It was not as key before, but now, for you to have access to even medical care, sometimes you need, to have those digital skills, even to call your family that are stuck maybe in the country of origin. Is important for refugees to basically, continue to hope, and obviously, having access to connectivity to mobile devices could also enhance, their own education, which might have been stopped when they fled their country. So it is very important that they continue to keep that possibility, as I said, to have a purpose in life. Because when you lose everything, it's important that you kind of, get connected with others to be supported in your daily life. So I think it's hope, it's having dignity in what you do. I think that's the whole thing that I see in this necessity for refugees to be able to continue their education and to be able to access digital skills as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating because sometimes, Monique and 𝘀𝗿𝗃𝗏, I hear about technology for bad. We hear about AI, we hear about bias, we hear about all the problems that could be created. But it's fascinating to hear a story about technology for good. 𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗏, you started Robo Co-op, and if you don't mind, I'll get you just in a moment to explain what it is and what's your purpose and where you work. But that in itself is helping refugees gain digital skills, as Monique mentioned, and creating new skills to a degree that allow people to live that dignified life that Monique mentioned. Would you tell us a little bit more about Robo Co-op and why you started Robo Co-op and what it's currently doing?
Right. Thank you. I think people with refugee background, they are displaced and also disconnected. And then, so I see refugee people in Tokyo, in Japan, and then they're really isolated, lonely. They want to get connected with family, society, but they don't have any means to do that. But not just giving computer, but like smartphone, but like we teach how to get connected through our online community. And then we have people with refugee member who can support each other with digital skill so that their resilience increases. They can talk about what they've been going through. And through that process, social capital is cultivated, and then, we can be more energetic towards a new life in a new place for a second chance. And not just education. We teach digital skill like automation technology or analytics as well. But like that becomes their chance for a better life, like so employability. So both education and employability, that's like key to have a second chance in a second um, environment. And that's what digital can enable for refugee people, I think.
It's fascinating that because the way both of you have described it, there's so many things coming out of one learning. The disconnected, we sometimes forget if you're by yourself, that loneliness factor, and therefore being able to at least visually see someone or talk to someone on the phone, that the dignity of being able to earn an income through skills. And it's interesting, all these countries people are moving to require digital skills. As someone once said, we're very few of us were actually born where we now live, so we're all refugees. Maybe we need to remember that sometimes. And Monique, what other things are UNHCR doing? Because working with or encouraging companies like, or co-ops, sorry, I should say, like Robo Co-op, is one initiative to gain digital skills, to reconnect people, to give them a new education. But what other things are UNHCR doing to help refugees digitally or technically or job-wise?
Yeah, I think we encourage actually refugees to have their own organizations or leading their own organizations that provide digital skills to other refugees as well. I think that's the beauty of it. That it's not a company, it's really an organization that is led by refugees. So really, this empowerment of refugees is very important for us. And that's the reason why we are supporting projects like this, because it brings creativity, it brings innovation, it brings enthusiasm from refugees themselves to help others. So we are very happy to see projects like this, and in other situations, in other operations, be it in Asia, in Africa, or elsewhere. UNHCR offices around the world are also working with organizations, with partners, to try to encourage this type of activities, but also to support those activities. You may know that UNHCR is going to hold a very large event at the end of the year for the Global Refugee Forum in December. Japan is co-convener, by the way. And it's really an opportunity for global solidarity for refugees. And part of it is really, to call upon states, but not only states, any other stakeholders, as I mentioned, private sectors, businesses, financial institutions, civil society, to really support refugees and countries who are providing them with asylum until they are able to return to their countries of origin or to find another solutions, basically. So it's really important that we show this solidarity, and that organizations like the one 𝘀𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 has created or has established be further supported, because it's very important, as I mentioned earlier, that refugees continue to gain access to education and to digital skills in the current modern environment we're living in.
𝘀𝗲𝗿, how has digital skills enabled you to live your life? Because whilst you're in rural Japan at the moment, you weren't always there.
Right. As a third generation of North Korean boy, born in Japan and raised in Japan, digital brought me up here to create an organization to give opportunity for people with refugee background. And I think the key is I could become someone to give a second chance to someone. And in our organization, people with refugee background, they are becoming a giver too. That amazing thing was that the earthquake hit Syria and Turkey recently. And then our Robo Co-op actually made a donation of, how much was it? 10,000 US dollars equivalent. It's not that really big, but like it's not really small for us. But like this is the money our refugee member created to their second chance, and then we could be a giver to someone who needs support. And then after hearing Monique's viewpoint, I think what's really important is meaningful participation of refugees themselves, and then multi-sector collaboration for refugee inclusion. And I think that's what Robo Co-op is actually accelerating, because this is really refugee-led organization. My Syrian member in Turkey is teaching digital skill to Ukrainian mom came to Tokyo, for example. And then we are delivering Silicon Valley's automation project with Burmese member in Myanmar, for example, and trying to bring up more new members, like Afghan woman came to Tokyo, for example, and it keeps going on and on. And then everyone becomes giver, and then every other software vendors or municipality, they help us become a digital talent, and then give back to society with additional value to digital transformation.
I sometimes wonder why we need to go into a difficult situation to then realize we should give to others. I wonder if we were a little bit more proactive instead of waiting for something to happen to realize how others are feeling. Let's see. Monique, what would a really great world look like? Because at the moment, unfortunately, we can't deny conflict. I wish it wasn't there. We can't deny natural disasters. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming for people who then decide, well, look, it's just too big a problem, and therefore I'm going to look away. I'm not going to get involved. I'll let someone the size of the UN solve all these problems. Well, what should we be doing individually, collectively as businesses as well, to make an impact? What would good look like for you?
I mean, a better world would be, of course, a world without conflict. But as you said, it's not the case. And I think what is very important is that refugees feel that they are not alone, that they are supported. And of course, what is important is really for each and every one of us to be in solidarity with them. And we can show that solidarity in many different ways. It can be supporting organizations like Robo Co-op, UNHCR, other organizations that are providing support and assistance to refugees, but also individually. I think it's important to recognize that because of the many crises, including economic crisis, there's this tendency to basically blame this on others. And refugees, unfortunately, also being blamed sometimes. And we are seeing mounting misinformation, even hate speech sometimes against refugees. So I think what is important is that, we understand who a refugee is, that the refugee is not a criminal. A refugee is really a person that needs our help, our solidarity, that persons that have fled, atrocious situations of human rights violations, of war, and that we are basically together to try to resolve the situation and not let, just organization or UNHCR or others to basically resolve the problem. I think the message is really a message of solidarity. We are all together in this, and we need each and everyone's support and involvement to try to make it a better place.
Yeah. I wonder if people realize that nobody chooses to run in the middle of the night with their family, leaving their entire communities behind, leaving everything they've possibly known to land in a distant country where they don't speak the language, have no family, no community, or whatever else. I think if we were individually put in that situation there, we may just see the world through a different set of lenses. 𝘀𝗿𝗃𝗃, with Robo Co-op, then what are you hoping to do over the next couple of years? What's the ambition of the cooperative, and what's the ambition of your members?
Well, I want to, of course, expand our membership so that everyone can have more opportunity, more members can have more opportunity. And then I want to create a narrative that refugees are not someone poor, rather pioneer, global digital pioneer who could evacuate, but who could make a second life in a new environment and actually give back to society with digital skill, the transformation that we are always talking about, that can be led by our global digital pioneers, people with refugee background. That's what I want to create. And with that, UNHCR always, try to materialize a resettlement, for people with refugee background. But I think with digital skill, people with refugee background can be more free. I mean, remote work, digital skill, you can choose wherever you want to go to, actually, with this skill. And that means, Robo Co-op increases social mobility from bottom to top, right? But at the same time, I think we can increase the global mobility too, for people to have their own, choice or will to stay in wherever they want to stay, or wherever they want to go back. Because, for example, Ukrainian members in Tokyo, they're thinking of going back, but there's no job, for example. And here they can get reskilled, and then they can have digital projects. But even if they go back, we can still be connected and doing digital job from Ukraine, and then they can be, supporting digital projects in Japan. So I think that's what I would like to kind of expand.
I really like that. I think digital for good. It's interesting. For the last, dare I shine a light on my age, decades, I've done all my work outside of Ireland, despite living inside of Ireland. And that's the bit that I love, that technology democratizes to some degree the world. Technology has killed distance, which allows us to work anywhere. But I love what you were both saying a moment ago. People are disconnected. At this moment, if technology can connect them in the situations that they're in, and maybe they get back to where they are, it'd be an amazing thing if they could reconnect. 𝘀𝗿𝗃𝗃, let me end on this. How would people find out a little bit more about Robo Co-op? Where would they go to look? And if you were asking for help, is that financial help? Is that time help? What would that look like as well?
Well, of course, some kind of financial aid, that would be helpful, because it's been only within 2 years since I created this organization, and then many people are helping us as a pro bono, and then it's kind of hitting the ground, but but rather I would say looking for example, digital professionals who can teach more digital skills to our members, for example, or software vendors who like to increase their user base. For that purpose, we can, expand our membership with new skill, and also our members can deliver those software to society, for example. So IT professionals to help us on reskilling, or software vendors to kind of expand our skill portfolio, or even corporate or municipality who wants to implement or take care of maintenance with people with diverse background. We can be their partner, I think.
Thank you. Monique, if you could leave people with a message or a direction, what would that message be?
Continue to be innovative, creative, enthusiastic, in support of refugees and all other individuals that are forcibly displaced, and it's also to be empowered and to be supported.
I like that. Folks, look, thank you so much for listening in. We have, as I said at the top end, 100 million refugees and 100 million jobs. There are companies and organizations and individuals and co-ops all playing a small part. And whilst the problem may seem overwhelming at times, if everybody played their part, it would make the job that little bit easier. No one chooses to leave their country when they're forcibly removed from it and put in situations where they don't speak the language, have no economic opportunity. Then technology is playing its part. At the end of the interview, and at the bottom of the screen, I'll put on how you can contribute and how you might get involved. But I wish you both, Monique, UNHCR, the very, very best and every success. I admire what you're doing tremendously. 𝘀𝗲𝗿𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗃, someone who has chosen to get involved when something impacted your life. I wish more of us would actually get involved before we were impacted, because hearing stories every single day surely drives us to take some action. But we'll put the links on. Maybe that is financial, maybe that's time support or something else, but let's get the links put out. And folks, if you can help and make that little bit of a difference, if 100 million of us did a little bit of something, it would make a massive impact on a lot of lives. Thank you so much for listening in today.